Good afternoon, it's 2 o'clock, so welcome to today's Cabinet meeting. As usual, this has been broadcast live via the County Council's website and will be archived so you can view it afterwards. Would everyone please remember to switch their microphones on before they speak and turn it off when they've finished speaking. So our first item is apologies for absence. We've seen apologies for absence from Ozzy O'Shea, and the leader, Nick Rushton, is joining the Cabinet meeting via Teams and therefore will not be able to vote on any of the items. On to item 1, the minutes, pages 3 to 6. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of March 2022 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 2, urgent items. There are no urgent items. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest in respect of any of the items on the agenda? Pam.
Yeah, I'd like to declare an interest in item 5. It's a registered interest as a member of Melton Borough Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else? Okay, on to item 4, major road networks, identification of the next priority corridor, pages 17 to 78. So the first report today concerns the study work that's being carried out to identify the Council's next priority major road network corridor and ask us to agree the A6 North route between the Leicester boundary and Kegworth, including the A6004 Epinal Way in Loughborough as the priority MRN corridor. We've had several submissions on this item which are attached to the order paper. From Hatham Para Council at 4A, from Mr Max Hunt, County Council, the Labour Group Transport Spokesman 4B, from Mr Max Hunt CC and Mrs Betty Newton CC as local members at 4C, and Mr John Marriott, local residents at 4D. Max has also asked to speak on this item, so Max, do you want to come up first? Sorry, Anne. Oh, you could go there, that's fine. Okay, so Max, you're going to come up and speak first, and then we'll move over to Anne. So over to you, Max.
Yep. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm speaking on behalf of residents of Loughborough North West and on behalf of Betty Newton, who represents Loughborough North. And I note that John Marriott has also contributed to this, and I think we're all supporting the same view that this is a premature and very difficult proposal that's being made. We'd also note that to date there has been absolutely no consultation whatsoever with residents or with businesses and other employers in the town, and that is reflected in the views of Hatham Parish Council. Hatham is a village just north of Loughborough, as most of you will know, which has a single carriageway through the village and out the other side, and would be the victim, if you like, of all the extra traffic that will be generated if this road is upgraded in the way that is proposed. And the first thing I want to say on the topic is that, as you all know, there are huge risks in public money, evidenced by successive overspends of major road projects by this authority and others. And the reason for that is simply because the money that we're applying for through the DFT won't finance the whole scheme that we're looking for. It has to have at least 15% that is funded by outside developers or contributors. And of course, at the same time, we don't have control over the costs over time. So that's a very serious consideration for any of the options that you've been presented with. As far as Loughborough and Hatham is concerned, it's a very complex route to upgrade if that's the proposal. Of course, there are no details whatsoever being proposed, simply that this road is to be a priority for upgrading. And it seems to me highly premature that the authority should take a decision to go forward with a complex route through our largest town, through the middle of our largest town, without having any details of how the difficulties are going to be overcome. For example, how do you speed up traffic through Hathern? Well, that would be a bottleneck in any increase in capacity of the roads south of Hathern. How do you cope with the traffic from the Freeport? Well, there is no Freeport transport strategy, as far as I know, and no indication, as far as I know, of whether there will be one. On the southern side of the town, how do you pass through a busy shopping centre and community area of Shelthorpe, which is a large part of the town to the south? At the moment, there are, I think, 9 roundabouts in close proximity as you go through. Most towns and villages would love to have a bypass. But of course, the proposal here is the opposite of a bypass. It's bringing more traffic through the centre of Loughborough. And that has an effect in all sorts of ways, not just in the large number of students who cross the road. It's the most heavily used protected crossing in the county. A lot of pedestrians, cyclists, people on short journeys, people on long journeys, school journeys, and so on. How do you cope with that if you're trying to increase the speed of the traffic through the town, which is the objective, and at the same time maintain a reasonable street scene? And we are fond of our town, and we don't really want a motorway, which is, or a, what do they call it, a fast road going through the town. There are many aspects that have yet to be assessed, and I note that the resolution is accepting this proposal, but at the same time asking for more work to be done on the detail, because no detail exists. So just finally, the whole purpose of this scheme is allegedly to reduce congestion, traffic congestion. And I've included in my note a link to some work on traffic congestion from Worcestershire County Council, and you might like to see that, perhaps after you've made the decision. But all the work that are going into these major roads will inevitably increase traffic. It'll increase traffic from what they call induced traffic, which is people who are using it who wouldn't otherwise use it. But there are also people who would use it in peak periods who wouldn't otherwise use it because it's heavily trafficked. But the authority seems to have no concept of how to reduce congestion apart from widening roads, despite the fact that it's a key objective of LPT3, the Local Transport Plan, which is set congestion, reducing congestion as an objective, but has, over the years since it was written, signally failed to do so. So the local authority has no solution to congestion, and I think the plan to go through the centre of Loughborough and through the centre of Hathern is going to prove very unpopular. I see that you've agreed in the order paper to do it, but I think when residents in the town begin to realise what is happening, they'll be very unhappy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Max. I'll now invite Anne Carruthers, Director of Environment and Transport, to present the report along with Janet Walker. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. The major road network is a network hierarchy that Department for Transport designated in 2018, and it covers the most economically important local authority A-class roads. In effect, it sits below the strategic road network, which is the one that's managed by National Highways, and the local road network managed by us, but it does come under our responsibility. The advantage of being allocated part or designated part of the major road network is that government have allocated a separate funding pot for that. So in effect, we have an opportunity to bid for funding to improve routes within the major road network. And that network for the county is shown in Appendix C of your report. The first round of funding that was allocated, we have provisionally been successful in securing money for the A511 corridor. What this report is bringing before you is asking for support in the next corridor we would want to seek investment for. There isn't money allocated for that yet, but it's about working up the business case, the feasibility for our next bid into that separate funding pot for this road network. Midlands Connect coordinate that process across the region and submit to government in terms of the priority schemes across the region. And we've been successful in securing £50,000 from them in order to carry out that feasibility work, so that there are schemes coming forward for a potential second round in that funding. We've used the criteria that Midlands Connect have set in order to look across the MRN in Leicestershire to assess which would be the strongest corridor for that investment. Key factors used to assess include journey time variation across peak and off-peak times, percentage of HGVs on the route, amount of through traffic across the route, access to the strategic road network, and access to major development sites, ports, airports, etc. So some key criteria there. The outcome of that assessment work shows that A6 North corridor from A46 just north of Leicester up to Kegworth performs best across our major road network, which is why we're suggesting it as the next corridor that we look to carry out that feasibility work on. The detailed assessment, if you're interested, is Appendix A of the report. The reason this performs well is that it connects East Midlands Airport, significant business and housing development in Loughborough, the proposed HS2 station, East Midlands Parkway, Freeport, DevCo, Development Corporation proposals, expansion of East Midlands Gateway, and planned development to the north of Leicester as well. There would also be the opportunity to potentially address severance, particularly in Loughborough, and also flood-related issues. The southern end of the corridor experiences on a frequent basis. The report seeks approval for this to go forward for, carrying out that feasibility work, and subject to that support from Cabinet, we will look to work that up to put forward to Midlands Connect for that potential future second funding round. Just finally then, I'll come on to the submissions, if that's all right, that have been put in as a result of or in response to this paper and the proposal. And we've heard from Mr Hunt about the concerns expressed there, round about increasing speed through those communities, generating more traffic through the communities. What I would say is the objective of the investment is about improving the corridor. Now, certain stretches of the corridor will need different approaches. Obviously, through the middle of Hathern, through the middle of Loughborough, we'll take different approaches to improving those corridors. What we've got is an opportunity to seek funding because these corridors are on the MRN, whatever that improvement may be. Yes, for free flow between communities, but that's not the outcome we want within our communities. It's about reducing severance, etc., and a whole host of other things. This work will look at that carefully. And as Mr Hunt alluded to, yes, there isn't any detail because we haven't done the work, but what we're seeking is approval that we focus in this corridor to do that work. And as part of that work as well, I would want to assure Cabinet there will be stages of consultation with those local communities as that becomes evident and details emerge from that work. So we just want to reassure on that point. Final point, there was a submission from a Mr. Marriott as well, who gave quite an interesting history of road development in this local area. And he also suggests that there needs to be a focus on cycling and walking. I just want to remind Cabinet that Loughborough is one of 2 areas that we're currently developing a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. So again, while we look at cycling and walking through this mechanism, MRN, and what we'd want to see improve through that, it would also dovetail with what's coming out of that local cycling and walking infrastructure plan work. Thank you, Chair. I'll conclude there.
Thank you. And I think you've made it clear we're in the very, very early stages of this, and there's a long way to go there. So I think we will appreciate that. And as you say, public consultation will be very important, but later on down the line there. So I will move the motion on the order paper. Lee?
Yeah, happy to second. As I say, it's a very full report. It shows the work involved to date, so happy to second.
Okay, so any other speakers? Okay, is that all? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, which is the North and East Melton Mowbray Distributor Road Land Assembly, pages 79 to 86. This report gives an update on the costs and delivery timescales for the North and East Melton Mowbray Distributor Road and seeks our approval for the land assembly that is needed to support the delivery of the road, including implementing a compulsory purchase order. So Jana Walker, Assistant Director of Environment and Transport, will introduce the report. Over to you, Jana. Jan, I'm not sure if your microphone's working. Do you just want to swap to the other one?
Is that better? Oh, sorry, that's definitely different, isn't it? I won't start again unless you need me to, but I'll just carry on. So, yeah, so our recommendations there, picking up on making minor amendments to the scheme where necessary in line with the surveys and work that we're progressing, and also we'll be looking to implement the compulsory purchase order and side road orders in line with the relevant legislation that I mentioned, and that's following the public inquiry that took place late last year in 2021. So what we're proposing to do, the crux of the matter, is to implement and purchase the land required to deliver the scheme prior to completing the full business case and receiving the final confirmation from the Department for Transport for funding. And originally, Cabinet has given us permission to implement the compulsory purchase order, but it was done so on the old programme where we thought that things might be the other way around. So you would have all of that information first. And there are some risks associated with that, obviously, in terms of going ahead of the full business case. But the reason we're bringing it to you today is because we believe that the benefits in terms of progressing the order now would save us in the region of about £1 million compared to delivering the scheme the other way around. This Cabinet's also heard recently about the pressures of inflation on the capital programme. So again, that's an estimate now that could increase if delays were there. So it would sort of save us money. It also helps keep the current programme on track, which is what our funding is linked to, and also supports some of the mitigation work that I mentioned in terms of ecology and archaeology to happen, again, all with a view to helping us inform future decision making in a timely manner. So the recommendation then would allow us to implement the orders in June, which would see us have access to the land in September 2022. Some of that preparation work then to be happening, with the main works due to commence in early 2023. But the full business case submission, the response from DfT and the confirmed price for the delivery of the scheme would all be reported back to Cabinet prior to award of that main contract and proceeding. So as we've talked about then, just to again draw your attention to the current estimate for the scheme is 85.3 million, with a contingency of 5 million as set out in the MTFS. If the scheme weren't to go ahead, we've set out the risk in the resources implications section of a total of 3.5 million, which would be involving the cost of the land and the preparation works. But again, that cost information will be with us before we actually commence the preparatory works on site. So there is time again to consider that. So a further report is due in the autumn back to Cabinet on those, but the main purpose of the paper is to gain approval to progress the implementation of the orders that have been approved. There, Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. We know this is a very complex situation that we're trying to juggle many little things, and anything that saves us money on this scheme is hugely welcome, as we're all aware of the financial position that we're in as County Council. So I'm happy to move the motion on the order paper. Lee?
Yeah, happy to second, Chair.
Anyone wishing to speak on this? Okay, is that all? Do you want to speak, Pam?
Thank you very much. I would just like to say that as a member of Melton Borough Council, the residents were extremely pleased with the news that the old farmhouse was being demolished to allow access to the route. I'm pleased to see this report come to Cabinet to spell out the details of what's going to happen to carry on the way forward. The residents have waited over 40 years to have this road, and they will be watching all of our reports and the work that we do very closely to see what is happening. So thank you for this report. I appreciate the honesty in it and knowing the steps that you're taking to carry this on. So thank you.
Thanks, Pam. I propose a motion. Lee second. Are we all in favour? Okay, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Jenna. Okay, on to item 6, East Midlands Freeport, the County Council membership, pages 87 to 104. So the next report sets out the latest position on the East Midlands Freeport, which will comprise sites in Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, and seeks our agreement to the next steps in the process, including for the Council to join the Freeport Company and become lead authority for the Freeport. John Sinnott, the Chief Executive, will introduce this report. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. If I could first update paragraph 6 in the report. The full business case for the Freeport was approved by the board and submitted to the government by the due date early this month. Paragraph 10 of the report reminds members that the tax sites were designated by HM Treasury in March. So taking those two things together, that is really positive progress for the Freeport. The next step is a dialogue with the government about the detail of the full business case, which actually starts tomorrow. But everything's now in place for the full approval of the Freeport later this summer. The recommendations in this report are the necessary tidying up of the County Council's position, both as a partner in the Freeport and as the lead authority and accountable body. And those recommendations are on the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for a positive move, and yeah, we're looking forward to this progressing as we move forward. So I'll move the motion on the order paper. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. It's in all of our interests for the Freeport to succeed, not least in bringing growth to the region, particularly in manufacturing, logistics, low carbon and renewable energy production and research, and also supporting the government's levelling up agenda. And I note that the Freeport is set to create 61,000 new jobs over the next 30 years, as well as £8.9 million to the local economy. So I have no hesitation in seconding this motion on the order paper.
Thanks, Peter. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? No. Okay. So I propose it, seconded by Peter. Are we all in agreement? Okay. Thank you very much. We move on to item 7, which is the revised mineral and waste development scheme for Leicestershire, pages 105 to 122. So the agenda concerns the revised mineral and waste development scheme, which is also known as the local development scheme, which sets out the timetable through the review of the Leicestershire minerals and waste local plan. Oliver Meek, the team leader for planning, is here to present his report. Over to you, Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of a development scheme is to establish a programme for the production of a local plan and set the main stages for its preparation. This allows anyone with an interest in the local plan process to know the expected timetable for progress and when opportunities to participate will occur. To reflect current legislation, this document is referred to as the Minerals and Waste Development Scheme. However, these documents are often referred to as local development schemes. Indeed, this was the case for the County Council's last scheme, which set the timetable for the current Minerals and Waste Local Plan, adopted in September 2019. Planning authorities are required to review local plans every 5 years to assess whether they need updating. The current Minerals and Waste Local Plan needs to be reviewed prior to September 2024. Whilst this review deadline is still some way off, a number of factors have been identified which indicate it would be beneficial to undertake a review now, including low sand and gravel reserves within the county, the delay in the delivery of expected waste infrastructure, and changes to national planning policy. The draft Minerals and Waste Development Scheme sets out the proposed timetable for the review of the adopted local plan. This timetable is just for the review process, and there are no assumptions as to whether the plan will need to be updated. The timetable sets out that the review will take place over the course of this year, and the findings will be reported to Cabinet in December 2022. If the outcome is that either a partial or full update to the local plan is necessary, an updated Minerals and Waste Development Scheme, including a timetable for the full local plan process, will be reported to Cabinet in spring 2023. The draft Minerals and Waste Development Scheme was reported to the Development Control and Regulatory Board at its meeting on the 10th of February 2022 and was supported, and the recommendation is as set out on the order paper.
Thank you, Oliver. Blake.
Thank you, Chairman, and I have no hesitation in moving the motion on the order paper. Can I just say, as a member for the Bruntingthorpe Division, which currently has a sand and gravel quarry, and the prospect of an imminent application for another sand and gravel quarry, also it has waste infrastructure within the division. I know firsthand that residents around the division and across Leicestershire take a keen interest in these types of plans. They are very important, and they are more clued up than ever and would welcome the opportunity to feed into our consultation and our review of our mineral and waste development scheme. So I have no hesitation in supporting, and note item 10 on the report where it says that the review will help ensure the policy continues to deliver development which protects the environment, delivering the outcome of people acting to protect the environment and enhance it for current and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Pam?
I'd like to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Any other speakers? Okay, Blake's proposed, Pam second. All those in agreement? Thank you very much. To item 8, which is Leicestershire County Council Statement of Community Involvement. So this concerns a revised statement of community involvement which sets out the County Council's policies on involving the community in parts of the statutory planning function. The report sets out the responses to the recent consultation and seeks approval for the revised statement. Over to you again, Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of an SCI is to set out how and when the community will be able to take part in the production of planning policy and how they will be consulted on applications for planning permission. The County Council's current SCI dates from 2015, and there are aspects which need to be updated to reflect changes in planning policy, the wider council and society more generally. Also, SCI should be reviewed every 5 years. Picking out some of the main changes as a result of the review, the SCI has been updated to explain the County Council's involvement in the neighbourhood planning process, take account of the declared climate emergency, provide additional details of the local plan review process, acknowledge increased use of social media and encourage its use as a tool to communicate where appropriate, encourage different ways of communication, such as virtual meetings, where it would benefit community engagement, provide guidance to applicants about pre-application engagement with communities, and align the SCI with the County Council-wide engagement principles. The draft SCI was reported to the Development Control and Regulatory Board on the 10th of February and was supported, with the suggestion that monitoring takes place. As such, a mechanism has been established to enable the collection of feedback received in relation to consultation on planning matters, which can then be used to inform the next SCI review. In addition, a 6-week period of public consultation took place between the 10th of January and the 21st of February this year. The responses to this are summarised at Appendix B, and these have been considered and used to update and finalise the SCI. The recommendation, again, is as set out on the order paper. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Oliver. Pam?
Thank you very much for that, this report. I think it does illustrate to the local community that we are interested in what they say, because residents get extremely suspicious of planning and they like to get involved and have a say of what's going to happen in their area. So I think the consultation was a brilliant idea. This report is good and I have no recommendation. I have no trouble in proposing it. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Louise?
I'm happy to second the proposal. I think in all we do, we encourage community engagement, and planning is another important area. So happy to second.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this? Okay, are we all agreed? Thank you, Oliver. Okay, on to item 9. So Leicestershire's Net Zero Carbon 2045 Strategy and Action Plan, pages 163 to 334. So the next report sets out the key findings from the Net Zero Carbon 2045 Roadmap for Leicestershire's research and provides an overview of the content, format and proposed consultation approach for the Leicestershire Net Zero Strategy and Action Plan. The roadmap gives a baseline assessment of greenhouse gas emissions from Leicestershire and suggests a number of pathways to reach net zero carbon by 2045. The Cabinet's approval is sought to be in consultation on the draft Leicestershire Net Zero Strategy and Action Plan. And welcome back, Anne, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The County Council is committed to achieve carbon neutrality in its own operations by 2030 and on county emissions by 2045. As part of that, we've recently completed work to establish a baseline for those wider county emissions, that's the 2045 target, and identified, as Chair's just alluded to, a number of potential pathways to take us to net zero. This work is key action area under the Council's environment strategy. The pathways considered include one that follows existing local and national policy, as well as 3 more ambitious scenarios to identify the ambitions that will have the greatest impact. Details of the baselining and the pathway are reported in Appendix A to your report. Overall, the work establishes a baseline of 8.5 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent across the county, with the biggest emitters being road transport, domestic energy, and then industrial and commercial energy. Only the 2 most ambitious scenarios or pathways that have been looked at will take us close to the 2045 target, and with all scenarios there will be some annual residual emissions left. The conclusions overall, however, are that the 2045 target can be delivered, but this will need to be in partnership with a wide variety of stakeholders across the county, and while feasible, it will be challenging and investment will be needed across all sectors. From this baselining work, we have drafted the Net Zero Strategy and Action Plan that's before you today. The draft strategy outlines a proposed approach to achieving net zero on the basis of a broadly collaborative approach. It looks to 2045, and the supporting action plan takes shorter periods, short to medium term view of up to 5 years, to identify the priority actions for that period to take us on the trajectory to 2045. An outline of the themes and priority areas for the action plan are contained in paragraphs 72 to 91, and the full strategy and action plan is at Appendix B. We have taken this to the Environment and Climate Change Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and their comments are recorded for you at paragraph 94. We do propose an extensive consultation in support of the draft strategy and action plan, and to engage stakeholders as widely as possible. And that will be supported by a communication and engagement campaign, and we're also exploring alternative options such as, or complementary options such as a citizens' assembly. It's proposed the consultation will run from May to July, subject to Cabinet support. The full recommendations for approval for the consultation of the draft strategy and action plan are contained in the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Over to you, Blake.
Yeah, once again, thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Anne, and your whole department for putting this document and this report together. A lot of work by actually quite a few people have gone into what you see before you today. And what we're talking about here is a consultation. We're going to put this document out to the public and ask the public, have we got the right approach here? And how can you help Leicestershire reduce our carbon emissions? I think the science is being widely accepted. The government have now legislated and declared their own climate emergency, or certainly Parliament has, and the government's legislated. We are not immune as Leicestershire County Council from the legislation, and we're busy putting our own house in order, reducing our own carbon emissions, trying to set a lead, trying to inspire other organisations and businesses to do the same. And what we have here is a lot of data, a lot of information, and a strategy, albeit quite a high-level strategy, that suggests how we are going to reduce by 2045 Leicestershire's emissions to net zero. We have a social responsibility, clearly. We have a legal responsibility, but we have a political responsibility. We, the Conservative administration at County Hall, went to the ballot box over a year ago now, or just about a year ago, and front and centre of our campaign was a greener Leicestershire, and this is the bedrock of what we intend to deliver for Leicestershire. As the Director of Environment has said, it's not going to be easy. We have 8.5 million tonnes of carbon emissions to reduce to net zero. That's going to, quite frankly, entail some behavioural changes from Leicestershire public, but we believe with the support of the public, and more importantly, the support of organisations and other businesses out there, this is achievable. And I look forward to the journey, but the start of that journey is putting this document out there and letting people have their say, and coming back to us with perhaps some critical or constructive criticism of our document, but in the main, I think people will be widely supportive of what we're trying to achieve. So I move the motion on the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Louise?
Yeah, I'm happy to second. I think it's an ambitious proposal, but also challenging. But I think if we can get partnerships with, as Blake said, business, organisations, residents, we can achieve this, and we're all for it, so happy to second.
Thank you. I just want to add, I think it's been said already, it will be a huge challenge, but I don't think we've ever shied away from huge challenges in Leicestershire before, so we will do this, but I think we do need the support of the whole of the community, as mentioned, residents, communities, businesses, everyone, to get to achieve our net zero carbon. And I will urge as many people as possible to respond to the consultation, whether it's critical or in support, but whatever, we need that feedback so we can move forward. So it's been proposed by Blake, seconded by Louise. Any other speakers? Okay, are we all agreed? Okay, on to item 10. So this is the dates of the council meeting 2022 to 23 and 2023 to 24, pages 335 to 336. So the final report on the public part of this agenda sets out the proposed dates for the county council meeting for the next 2 years. I don't think we need to have any further debate or further introduction, so we'll just ask Richard Shepherd if he's happy to second this motion.
Yes, happy to second, Madam Chairman.
Are we all agreed with the dates? Thank you very much. Item 11 is items referred from Overview and Scrutiny. There are no items referred from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Any other items? Item 12, any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent? As I mentioned earlier, we have no urgent items. That brings the public part of this meeting to a close. So thank you to everyone for attending. So item 13, exclusion of the press and public. I now move that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded for the following items of the business on the grounds that they're likely to involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, and that in all circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exception outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Are you happy to second, Richard Shepherd?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Second, Madam Chairman.
Okay, are we all in agreement that we move to exempt? Okay,